Parashat Bo. The narrative of the slavery is almost done. At the end of the parasha, the Bnei Israel walk to their freedom. And then next week, the chase begins to recapture the Bnei Israel. It's easy in these parashiot to get lost in the storyline and to get excited by the details. But I've noticed something this year that I'm sure many have noticed, but I want to share the thought with you. You compare and contrast. Sounds like an English essay, I know. Compare and contrast the opening passages to the book of Parashat and the opening chapters in the book of Shemot. You find many parallels. And ultimately, Torah is a message. The whole collection of Torah text is a polemic. It's a message that's different from the other theologies, the different philosophies that emerged back all those years ago. And it remains, again, a polemic against modern thought. So what are those parallels? So you've noticed at the beginning of the book of Shemot, we get told how the Bnei Israel, Paru, Vayishrutzu, Vayirbu, Ma'admo, they multiplied greatly. What was that opening conversation to Adam and Eve right at the beginning of the Torah? Peru, Uru, be fruitful and multiply. And what do we know? We know that that phrase was also used in relation to the animal kingdom. There was the idea of multiplying and filling the earth is an important value, not to centralize everything in one space. That was the Tower of Babel, not to centralize power in one being. That was the king. The king doesn't have all the power he wants, not a Jewish king, although the pharaohs very much believed that they did. We also have the beginning of the Torah, Ruach Mamalala says, Onkelos, that famous Nefesh Chaya, speaking being. And what do we have in the book of Shemot? The Jewish people are stuck. They can't speak. We have all those fascinating drushes about the festival of Pesach, that it's Pesach, the mouth that speaks, as a contrast, as a tikkun almost, as a spiritual rectification for the inability to speak. Because when you're in a terrible place, you can't speak. You don't know how to call out to Hashem. You don't know how to call out to those that need help. So we have the power of speech as a parallel to both stories. We have aspects of nature. The plagues first attacked the water. That was the water we saw right at the beginning of the Torah. We have insects being used. We have the creation of those animals, the fish that teem in the waters. We know that they died. And then the plagues move on to land and the formation of land in the book of Parashat. Really interesting parallels. So when we open the first two books, and we know, at least according to the Netziv in his introduction to the book of Shemot, Exodus in Latin, but he actually calls the book of Shemot book 2. It's the second half of the creation story. Because when the Jewish people finally get the Torah, then the purpose of the world, the purpose of our people has been manifest, has been reached its completion, fruition almost, and therefore it's the second half of creation. But it's more than that. We have two volumes, two books. One is the creation of the Jewish people in particular, and the other is the creation of humanity as a whole. And in both cases, these fundamental lessons, the power of speech, what we do with speech, how we use our speech, recognition that every part of life, down to the smallest creatures, etzba Elokim, the finger of God, we heard them say last week, when the magicians couldn't replicate the plague of lice, that everything, down to the tiniest creatures, to the ability to go into the land of Egypt and select which firstborns were destined to be punished and which were not, all is the hand of Hashem. So we have divine providence, we have the spirituality behind the physical world, and we have the power of speech. These are fundamental values that we need to live with. And as we complete this week's parasha and we complete the plagues, let us remember that ultimately Paro received the plagues, as the Torah attests to many, many times, in order to get to know Hashem. The very God that he denied earlier in the story, he became intimately aware of. We say this every day in the Shema. Paro had to learn Shema Yisrael, the truth of the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, the Hey, that was, the is, that always will be. He had to know the truth of Elokeinu, the God of power, and Hashem Echad, utterly unique, not to be replicated, not to be challenged, ruling supreme in the world, but giving us the opportunity to partner with him. Depending on how we use the world will either respond to us positively, or the world will be used, the physical world will be used to punish us. If we use that power of speech as we should, then mankind can rise all the way up to the top of Mount Sinai when Hashem brings down the Torah in a few weeks' time. Take care, my friends. Shabbat Shalom.